Welcome to the channel. Right now, we live life to the best of our ability, learning from experience but not about experience. We are actually winging it without having read the instruction manual. In order to successfully direct our lives, we need to not only learn from our past experiences and that of others, but we also need to learn about experience itself. This book grants us the understanding pertaining to how all experience is created and walks us through the process of implementing this knowledge so as to achieve the ultimate goal, to gain the capacity to direct our life in accordance with our will. This book is dedicated for the two loves of my life, whom I refer to as my parents, Julio Jonathan Cervantes Islas and Liliana Maria Chape Cervantes. The beginning. The goal of this book is to gain the capacity to direct our life as we see fit and thus change the themes of our life from those of suffering and dissatisfaction to that of fulfillment. Many of us have an idea of the direction we wish for our life to move toward, but it is few who are actually able to go down said path. Why is this the case? Was our life simply designed to be something difficult that the grand majority of humans were meant to fail at? The themes of the lives of many individuals are those of suffering and dissatisfaction, since we for the most part learn from our experience, but we do not learn about experience itself. What is meant by this is that we are always learning from our past experiences along with those of others, and in this manner attempting to affect our lives for the better. However, we never take the time to step back and form an analysis regarding the mechanism or process by which we as humans generate experience. The way we are currently living our lives, learning from experience but not about experience, is the equivalent of playing a board game and learning about the game as we play, rather than taking a break from the game in order to read the instruction manual and then resuming our play. If we were to do this, we would be equipped with both the knowledge we gained from reading the instructions along with the experience we have thus far obtained from playing the game. We would have much better odds of the game going in our favor than if we simply only learned via experience as we went along playing the game. In the same manner, if we learn about experience and not just from experience, we would have much better odds of our life moving in the direction we please. We are so precise and inquisitive when it comes to so many topics regarding the natural world. Yet when it comes to experience, we do not bother to analyze how experience in general comes to be formed, but rather simply deal solely with our intra- and interpersonal experiences. We never question the mechanism or process by which we as humans generate experience. What is even more interesting, and a reason to concern ourselves with learning about how experience is generated, is that everything we do is experience. We cannot consciously do anything outside of experiencing. Think about it. We experience suffering and dissatisfaction. We are not physically in them. Everything we can do, will do, or have done is part of our experience. There is nothing else we can do outside of experiencing, and nothing that concerns us that is not part of our experience in one way or another. Note, this point will be developed throughout chapters 1 and 2. We can never consciously do anything aside from experience. This initial realization is key to being able to gain the capacity to direct our life in accordance with our will. If our entire life is based indeed on experience, and we come to understand how we as humans generate this, then we can indeed come to control our experience. In this manner, we gain the capacity to direct our life. This is why it is indispensable to not just learn from experience, but also about how experience itself is generated. By analyzing experience itself, we can come to uncover the inputs that are responsible for the aforementioned, as well as the process via which said inputs create experience in general, all our experience. And so, as a result of such an analysis, we would be able to determine the manner by which to affect the inputs so as to consistently create the experience we wish to have. Meaning, we would gain the capacity to direct our life and consequently change the themes of our lives from those of suffering and dissatisfaction to that of fulfillment. Note: from here on out, we will more accurately refer to that which we are concerned with affecting as our life experience rather than simply the much more general term life. Part 1. The Awareness, Chapters 1 through 2. In the first part of the book, we will walk together through an analysis that will grant us the ability to discover the inputs experience in general is comprised of. It must be noted that we will not only discover some inputs, we will uncover all inputs responsible for the creation of experience. After all, what good would it do us to uncover a few inputs if we cannot with certainty know all the inputs that comprise our experience? There would always be some unknown factor that would be out of our control, and thus we would never truly have the capacity to direct our experience according to our will in a consistent manner. This first portion will be the understanding that will serve as the foundation for the process, where we will apply the understanding gained to our life. Part 2. The Process, Chapter 3. The second part takes the awareness gained and provides guidance on how to apply the understanding so as to acquire the capacity to direct our life experience as we see fit consistently. Think of it as the how-to portion. This chapter can be considered the process or the main act which the initial 2 chapters set the stage for by imparting understanding. This will be where we learn how to affect the inputs consciously, because we understand the process, in order to achieve our ultimate goal of gaining the capacity to direct our life experience as we see fit, and, consequently, changing the themes of our lives from those of suffering and dissatisfaction to that of fulfillment. Part 3. The Self-Created Identity, Chapter 4. This section covers the finishing touches we need to take into consideration for the attainment of our ultimate goal. Part 4. The Insights. This final portion contains short essays with supplementary information, absolutely to be read. Introduction. Before beginning our analysis that will allow us to not only uncover the inputs responsible for the creation of our life experience, but will also grant us the understanding of how to affect said inputs, we must understand the structure of the analysis itself. For starters, this analysis will be named the 4-step system. Its purpose is to uncover the inputs as well as show us how to affect these in a manner so as to consistently direct our life experience in accordance with our will. However, before applying the analysis to our life experience, we will apply it to a much simpler example in order to familiarize ourselves with this particular analysis and to come to understand how it works. This is done for the ease of understanding, as explaining the analysis while simultaneously applying it to experience itself would be a bit difficult, due to the complexity of the topic. Rather, we will use a much simpler subject, a video game, to apply the analysis to, and in this manner be able to properly understand the analysis itself prior to actually using it for the purpose of learning about experience itself. The 4-step system. Without further ado, let us dive into our example. The video game takes place in a medieval setting and the theme has to do with war. The objective of the game is to conquer. However, Gino does not necessarily enjoy this particular theme and the objective of the game seems nonsensical to him. He wishes to affect the game in a manner where the theme of the game would be futuristic android wars and the objective would be to take down as many bad guys as possible. In this case, it could be the androids who are attacking the humans. Unfortunately, no matter how hard Gino tries, how much effort he puts in, or how much time he spends playing the video game, he would never be able to change the themes or the objective of the game. both of which would require affecting the inputs that result in the game. Gino can indeed take actions such as making certain choices within the gameplay that will influence the developmental course of the game. However, these actions can in no way change the theme or the objective of the game Gino is dissatisfied with. As such, his overall experience of disappointment and dissatisfaction with the game will not change regardless of the decisions he makes within the game and how these affect the gameplay. In order to change the objective and the theme of the game, a meaningful change, the inputs that result in the game must be affected. We will go through the 4-step system and see if there is the possibility to consciously, with an established purpose in mind, affect these inputs so that ultimately Gino may have the experience he wishes. The 4-step system. 1. Establish what the system will be applied to. This might seem a bit obvious, but of course we have to state what the system is being applied to. In the case with Gino, the system is being applied to the video game. We are interested in discovering the process by which the game is created, along with the inputs involved in that process. 2. Gain the awareness of what we are experiencing, what we are engaged in. It is important to identify what we are engaged in this case, what Gino is engaged in. In our example, obviously what Gino is engaged in is the video game. In this particular case, we did not have to gain this awareness as it was something that was simply known, and thus, we cannot truly appreciate the importance of this point with our example. This will not be the case in the scenario dealing with experience itself. What we are engaged in is not outright obvious by any means, though we might believe otherwise. Note, something that is crucial to keep in mind for later. What we are experiencing is not necessarily in accordance with where the physical body resides. Gino's body is in a room, sitting on the couch, yet he is not experiencing the room itself. What he is experiencing is the video game. Thus, where the physical body resides does not necessarily dictate what we are experiencing. 3. Determine whether or not we have the possibility to consciously affect the inputs that result in what the system is being applied to, what we are analyzing. The next step in the system is to determine if it is even possible for us to consciously affect the inputs that comprise what this 4-step system is being applied to. If the answer to this step is no, the system ends here and we essentially have to give up. For if we cannot affect the inputs, we cannot have control over what the system is being applied to. The manner in which to find out if we can indeed consciously affect the inputs is by determining whether we consider what we are analyzing to be the totality or not, in accordance with our current awareness. If we deem that what we are analyzing is not the totality, then we have the possibility to consciously affect the inputs resulting in the aforementioned. In order for us to deem the subject of our analysis as the totality, it must be the outermost level of inclusion we can conceive of, meaning it includes everything and anything that is directly and/or indirectly observable. If there is anything we can ponder that exists and can be observed directly or indirectly outside of what we are analyzing, then we cannot consider this to be the totality. Notice that there is a difference between the totality and what we consider to be the totality. The latter is the determining factor in this step and is based on our beliefs, our current awareness, not necessarily what actually is. In our example, this awareness relating to whether the video game Gino is playing, the subject of our analysis, is the totality or not, comes to us relatively easy. This is because we are aware of Gino being in something before he begins playing the video game, and we are aware of him still being in this something, that something being what is commonly referred to as reality, once he finishes playing the video game. Consequently, it is clear that what we are analyzing is indeed not the totality and is part of something. It is embedded within this something. According to the previously explained, this indicates that we do indeed have the possibility to consciously affect the inputs resulting in the subject of our analysis thanks to our awareness, and so we can proceed with our analysis. The reasoning behind this is simple enough. If we believe that the subject of our analysis does indeed include everything that exists within it, then it is granted that we cannot know what created this. Think about it. What created the subject of our analysis cannot exist within the very thing it presumably created. It has to exist outside of this. Therefore, if we cannot fathom anything existing outside the subject of our analysis until our awareness changes, we cannot move forward in our system. Even if we determine that the subject of our analysis is not the totality, by no means does this guarantee that we will be able to consciously affect the inputs resulting in what we are analyzing. It only establishes the possibility. This simply allows us to move forward with the analysis, which is essentially a hypothesis until it is proved via application. Completing the analysis also does not guarantee that we will be successful. This analysis abides by logic, and we are attempting to affect something tangible. Thus, we will only know we have succeeded by applying our findings, the result of our analysis, to our situation and observing whether the desired effect is experienced or not, whether we were able to affect the inputs as per our wishes. The alignment of our awareness with the observable phenomena is required to bring about the change we seek. 4. Determine the inputs and the process that result in what the system is being applied to, what we are analyzing. It is time to dedicate ourselves to uncovering the inputs and the process which are ultimately responsible for the creation of the subject of our analysis, in this case the video game. At this point, we must use any information we might have pertaining to what we are analyzing, originating from the previous experience along with any development resulting from our analysis thus far, in order to determine the inputs and the process. If what we have thus far is not enough, we must use our intellect along with research in order to obtain the information from external sources and procure the knowledge that we seek. Note: admittedly, for this example, some of the steps might have seemed superfluous. However, for our scenario pertaining to experience itself, the analysis will indeed be developed via the steps progressively, and we will gain insight in regard to the process and its inputs as we develop the analysis. Keep in mind that this system was specifically custom built to be used towards experience itself. This example of the video game simply serves the purpose of exposing the system. We had to have the video game as the background in order to explain the 4-step system. Without a background, it would be difficult to cover the system. In this particular case, based on what we are analyzing, our previous experience might be enough to assess and determine what the inputs are that result in the video game. We can determine by using the logic behind causality that the inputs we have to affect cannot exist within what we are analyzing, which in this case is the video game. This is because the cause, the input of something, exists prior to the effect, the output. Thus, if we are looking for the inputs, it makes no sense to look within the output, the game itself. We know that no matter what Gino does within the game, we will not be able to affect the inputs that result in the video game. Our search for the inputs thus narrows to outside of the video game. At this point, if we are not aware of how video games are made, it would serve for us to go out into the world in search of direct experience. We can easily learn how games come to be, as we know that this knowledge is readily available, and through our experience can discover what the inputs are that result in the video game. Most of us are already aware that what determines the content of a video game is the programmable code. Consequently, we determine that the input by which we can consciously affect the video game in a meaningful manner is the code. Note: we are going to oversimplify the example and make believe that the only input that results in the video game is the programmable code. This is not such a far-fetched idea, but by no means is it the truth. However, if we do not do this, this entire book would be dedicated to this example, which is not the intention whatsoever. At this point, we have determined what the inputs are, in this case the singular input, that result in the video game and are responsible for the theme and objective of said game. We know that programmers are the ones who write the code, and that we could hire a programmer to alter the code for us. Our other option is to learn the actual process ourselves and learn how to program. In this particular instance, knowing that a programmer is the one who writes the code is sufficient knowledge regarding the process for us to obtain our ultimate goal and have the input modified so that the video game is altered in accordance with Gino's wishes. And thus, the 4-step system concludes. Conclusion. It is now time to apply the 4-step system to experience itself. By doing so, we will come to understand the process along with the inputs that result in experience itself. To reiterate, chapters 1 and 2 will be dedicated to the analysis and will serve as the foundation, the knowledge base, for the actual process this book undertakes. The process in which we will gain the capacity to direct our life experience as we see fit, consequently changing the themes of our life experience from those of suffering and dissatisfaction to that of fulfillment. Whether we get one life or many, there is no way I am going to spend another second of this one being something I don't want to be. Download the complete book in order to follow along from the website. The link is in both the video and the channel description. Thank you so much.